What if your boss came to you and said, "Hey, this business we're in, it's doing really well. I want to sell it. And I want to start a whole new business because I see this problem with plastics in the ocean that I think we need to do something about. And it might entail having to sell this thing that's going well and start a whole new thing where we know the problem, we know what we want to do about it, just don't know quite how." That's the story of the plastic bank and co-founder Shaun Frankson. Very smart guy, very polished. I try to get him to tell us the inside story, and he gave us a few awesome tidbits about starting a business and also trying to do good. I think there's valuable lessons in this episode. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we're just going to go on with that. Shaun, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy life to just give us a chance to learn from you and to learn what it's like to be you in the space that you're in. I'm really excited. So thanks for coming on the show.
Glad to be here.
I already introduced you to the audience in terms of what you do. So let's just get right into what is the daily challenge problem that you're constantly chiseling every day that you get up? What is that thing in the way your business works and the way the plastic bank organization runs? What's the thing that you're constantly trying to resolve?
Yeah, and it's really almost a never-ending battle of just figuring out how to make everything exponential. You can have a lot of good ideas that don't scale, a lot of things that, when you're really trying to make a giant impact and not just do nice to do's, really obsessing with exponentiality. And same with exponentiality, scale with authenticity. How do you do it at scale without breaking the trust? And for us, that really ties into everything.
I mean, you're into your 10th year, so I'm really curious to know what that journey has been like. But one of the reasons I wanted you on brought you on my show was in just learning about you online and looking at certain things. I was really impressed by how you and your business partner came together, and it sounded like it was just a connection, and you had you knew the problem, right? You were going to tackle, and then you knew, right, plastics in the waste stream, and you knew that if you could attach value in some way to that plastic, then people wouldn't just look at it as just trash to just throw into whatever receptacle or stream or ocean. They would look at it as wait, hold on, I can get something for this. The how part was the part that you didn't know. And so, it's been 10 years. Can you give us a sense of what made you decide to do that? If you don't know how to do something, you have a vision, you have the problem, you have no idea how to start. What's that? What was it that made you jump into this?
Yeah, it was just over 10 years ago when David and I were part of another company that David had founded at the time. We just were making that business turnkey, systematized, really looking at the next big thing. And before we identified this, just knew that, how might we, use all the knowledge we know as entrepreneurs to create something with a social impact, ideally something that had the potential to impact 1 billion people's lives. And one day David was at an event looking at 3D printing. And, he's just fascinated that you have plastic waste that was turned into 3D printing. And, plastic, in itself is often treated as garbage, wasteless. You change the shape and you have a $200 machine part. And he was just blown away by reveal the value in plastic, change the way people looking at it. You go from waste to wealth. And, really in that kind of inspiration of waste to wealth for plastic, how might we impact 1 billion people's lives? He phoned me that night and it was, Shaun, I've figured out our next business. It's called the Plastic Bank. We make plastic a currency, so it's too valuable to be seen as waste. And, really, we started right away while running that other company but really with that comfort level of we don't have all the answers. We really don't know every next step, but we're committed to figure it out. We're committed to become the people that could figure it out. And almost just putting the ego aside, putting, self-limiting thoughts aside, let's just be comfortable with we can figure it out. And, this really quickly then became scouring the world of what's working, what's not, how might we, what could be. And the one thing we were also comforted, especially being an entrepreneur, it's a little bit easier to say, we don't need to replicate what someone else has done. We can pioneer and create what's never been done. And that was almost the business model of let's be comfortable doing it in a way that's never been done because the way it's been done today isn't working. And we look at recycling around the world, it wasn't really working. And, really just being inspired and even being open when people would say, here's the idea. How are you going to make it work? What when this happens? What's that? I don't have all those answers right now, but we're going to figure it out. And it's amazing once you even say that authentically to people, they could then say, you know what? I might be able to help. Like, you don't need to pretend to know it all. You don't need to have all the answers. Half the time it scares people when you pretend to have all the answers and you don't. But when you're authentic and say, I'm on a journey to do this, we're on a journey to stop ocean plastic, to make plastic a currency. We don't have it all figured out, but here's what we know. Here's what we're trying to do. People could come to us and we could be the conduit, for the world to really play a part, for the right people to come in at the right time, and help us just figure it out together.
Wow. Well, I mean, give us this. Well, okay. Well, I have so many possible questions. Like, how do you get the confidence then? When you think of like your younger years or, get a job, you get your CV, you got to sell your skill set a little. Maybe when you're really young, you're kind of like exaggerating a little here and there to just try to get the job. And you're like, I'll figure it out along the way. I mean, there's that rub, right? Like you want to present the best version of yourself, the best version of the company, the pitch, when you're going towards investors. On the other hand, I think that you're absolutely right in that if you can actually lean towards the I don't know parts and we haven't figured that out, but we're going to go down that journey and we have a plan towards where we're going in there, where we think we can go. It comes off more authentic. It's a stronger sell of the potential, right? Because 10 years ago, who other than some municipal recycling processes and then like some big like flashy cleanup attempts with ships in the middle of the ocean, like what was really out there doing what you guys were doing?
Yeah, this was one of the most interesting part with our journey when we started. It was really clear our vision is plastic as a currency, social plastic, plastic that can transform lives. And when we first started, like 10 years ago, to your point, like no one was talking about ocean plastic. There was no metaphors of more plastic than fish. There was no islands the size of Texas. This all came in the last, 7 years or last 5 years. And when we first started, and it was even amazing compared to where the world is today, many of the first brands we reached out to said, consumers don't care about purpose products. There are no logos, beyond fair trade. There really isn't much logos on products. There's not a whole lot of social cause differentiation on products. Like when we started, I think Method had done one kind of pilot ocean plastic bottle from recycled plastic. And to your point, that was about it. In the first couple of years, the first 3 years was really just convincing companies and trying to find that the consumer will care. If we can have an authentic way to source your material, the consumer will care. And, where the tipping point started to come a little bit is, there's once that, study came out, plastic in the ocean the size of Texas, there started to be an awareness. And then there started to be this gravitation that a lot of people looking, how do I play a part? How do I do something? And now all of a sudden, a lot of brands started to look at, well, how could my brand play a part? And we went from trying to convince people that, that consumers would care to there was a little bit of interest. And then the one pain point that we had as soon as we're ready to go, we talked to a lot of the big companies to say, it sounds too good to be true. Like, what? I love everything you're talking about, but it's too good to be true. And in many ways, because we're the only people doing it or say we could do it, we had no competition at the time. To many companies, well, if you have no competition, it sounds too good to be true. And, it was just amazing this getting people comfortable with the first yes. And then for us, when our first partner said yes, of great, let's offset the plastic that we're using. Every bottle produced will stop 2 kilos of plastic. And for us, we invented the world's first plastic credit, the first plastic offset, where it wasn't our material being directly used in the manufacturing to start, but how might we add impact that's authentic to a reusable water bottle? And then the trickle down, when the first partner said yes, and the second partner says, I saw what you did there. Could we do something better? Than the third partner, I saw what you did there. Could we do something bigger together? And you get from the impossible first yes to those first couple yeses that you validate. It's now real. Others have taken that first step with you. And even to the point of authenticity, our first partners, really would be so clear the vision is here. The vision we are so confident in, but we need to work together to get to that vision. And, the more they're willing to work with us, the more we can really get what they need and really customize our offerings to how do we problem solve what they need solved.
Tell us about that big break, though. Can you give us a little bit of what that story was like? That first, the first partner.
Yeah, I mean, we were up and running in Haiti with our operations when the chicken and the egg thing, where we built the organization first, built the operations, we're self-financing, self-sustaining it to then create a sellable product. And, really had to just learn as we go. And like any new product, how do you price a new product? Well, the new product, you kind of learn, you feel out, well, what's the partner willing to
Mm.
pay? Like, what kind of packages do they need? What do they need with it? And, it's a big learning curve of just creating enough of a real proof of concept to then be able to pitch the proof of concept that we can take this and build it into what you need. And it, it was really a lot of just listening. So, we had created a multi-million person movement online with people asking for social plastic, tweeting that corporation X, why don't you use a social plastic? And, it really was starting with this validation that the consumer cares. So we had a lot of media. We were in like Forbes, Times, Fast Company, did some national TV.
Yeah, tell me about that because, like, you were still just fundraising, right? You were doing some early fundraising or crowdsourcing fundraising at the time, 10 years ago.
Well, it made things, we were a little fortunate where David financed this business by selling the old business. So, one advantage that we did have, David really re-put it all on the line of just full investment of, so much so that love this business concept, believe in it so much that I'm already all in.
What was that asset that you then sold to cash out to them dump here? What was that?
Yeah, so we had a GPS tracking company called Nero Global Tracking that David had funded. And the sale of that is really what brought everything at Plastic Bank to life, just fully self funded by David with just a true belief in the idea, belief in the mission, and, knowing what we now know, this is what we got to do in life.
So your boss, was he your boss at the time or was he your partner?
Yeah, boss at the time, yeah.
He convinces you to like, hey man, this business we got going on over here, it's good, it's great, but we're gonna sell it. And we're gonna take this pile of cash and we're gonna do something even bigger. Although we don't exactly know how to do it. We're just gonna do it. We're just gonna go on the journey. And you're like, that sounds like a good idea. Let's just do that. Is that how it went down?
No, it's how I roll. It's the fun way of life. It really just, again, knowing what we know, it feels like the right thing to do, feels like the mission to become. And again, this is the whole point of, to me, even a social enterprise. When you can authentically combine a business model with a mission and a purpose, it just really feels like the right thing to do.
That's super important, right? I think that does speak to like people that are in business that like you start down like this path of like, well, what is it I can do that somebody's willing to pay? But that doesn't necessarily bring the fulfillment, right? What you're trying to do is practice this realignment of like, what is it that I like to do that people are willing, that there's a marketplace for, that people are willing to pay, and can I grow and develop that? Because now then you're basically getting paid to do something you love to do, right? And if you can attach that to a real mission, like what you guys are doing, that probably drives all kinds of new energy get through those long, like, I don't know if we're doing the right thing. I don't know when's the next partner going to come along, those moments, right?
And I think for us, it became so real since, we're not a widget. We're a full-sided marketplace where we set up the ecosystems and roll the collectors, the branches, the processors, and since all this on the ground, these registered plastic bank, members, when you actually go and meet them and know that, by giving someone an above market rate for recycling, you're paying for their kids to go to school, you're paying for, the ability to get medicine. And the first time that you ever, really go there and experience the, because of this, I can now do X, it really becomes real. I mean, one of the first ones that we had in Haiti, someone literally said, "Thank you. I'm now the kind of person that can afford shoes."
Whoa.
And when you just think of, literally that's how hard life has been, and now this consistency means your first step of appreciation of, I can now afford shoes, let alone everything beyond that. And you really just remember, again, what we obsess with, it's got to be regenerative. It's not taking from these areas for a campaign. It's how do we make the areas better? How do we literally lift someone's life, do it sustainably, and not take advantage or of someone, but literally have this ongoing way that they can, progress out of poverty, making recycling a starting point to a better life, not the end point. Then it becomes real that it's not just about you and your customers, the community, it needs it so much that that really becomes the driver that in the toughest times, how do we keep protecting the community like in this? Because this is, yeah, again, the impact has to be authentic, and the more authentic, the more driving it is for everybody.
That is, when you travel to other parts of the world that are not as like, developed with sufficient infrastructure, you just realize how little it takes to actually make a massive difference sometimes in other parts of the world. And I would assume that there's a certain like awareness or motivation that comes from that, right? Like, why did you guys pick Haiti um, as one of the first places to begin this type of programming?
Yeah, when we first started, we'd first done some exploring in Colombia and Peru, looking what's working, what's not. Then we were approached by an organization that heard about the model we were trying to do and really looked at, this could be the perfect timing to get started. And for us, almost starting in one of the most disadvantaged, hardest to work places, really kind of set the tone that we didn't want to start thinking of how could we create something that only works in one place. How could we almost start in the most challenging place, really learn the lessons, then take that into other areas? So we're now in the Philippines, Indonesia, Egypt, Cameroon, Thailand, and every single location has very different challenges. And we really look at how do you almost get that business model like 50% there and then adapt it to the local culture, the local needs. And, some of the learnings that we had, it can't be us doing it from a distance. We really need the on the ground team there, understanding the culture, nothing of it coming off like we're Canadian, but everyone probably thinks we're American, nothing coming off like an American Canadian solution, really having it be their local plastic bank and really understanding how to embrace that culture change, the behavior change with making it still feel like their program.
We should go back to this question though, because I was curious, like, how did you get so much media exposure in that transition at that early stage?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a bit of a growth hacker and marketer myself. So a lot of our starting point was just connecting on LinkedIn to the, different people in the media. We have this vision, social entrepreneurs trying to make plastic a currency. Is this a fit for any stories you're looking at? And I think we really hit a bit of a wave to begin with where a lot of people like, that's unique, that's interesting, let's chat. David and myself have usually been, done a lot of presenting, done a lot of speaking. So when you can do that fairly well, it becomes a little bit easy to showcase certain things you do and then be able to be brought back on. And I think just there's enough people that we got sparked with the simple thing of we're trying to make plastic waste a currency to stop ocean plastic. Can we chat? And I think it just had enough of a hook that a lot of people said, okay, it's not even normally what we talk about, but I might have something. And I think the theme, whether it came to, a lot of the media we got, a lot of the introductions, when we're technically not talking to media, not companies, we're talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes you. I'm on a mission to do this. Can you help me? And I think there's a lot of people, I normally wouldn't do this, but, let me go talk to the producer. Let me go talk to my boss. And I think we found this little niche of people that want to be change makers. And when they see this opportunity, what, maybe this is one of my moments for change. And I think we were just able to authentically spark that, thing in the change makers of all type. What, this could be my time to help. And they did.
How did that impact? Like, did it feel like, oh man, we're getting a rush of media interest, which is good, but we're also just like figuring out we're just starting the enterprise, the whole thing, the whole social enterprise business. We still got to figure out what we have to do. Was there any was there a lot of pressure? I would imagine.
If anything, it's validating it because, like, really quickly, we trademarked and coined our social plastic. Plastic Bank was the name from day one. And really, when we got a platform like national television and different opportunities to say we're trying to make plastic a currency, we're going to get the big brands to do it, to even to the consumer's part. Do you care? One of the arguments at the time was consumers don't care. And once we had this wave of validation that people were, like, if you want to see social plastic, and a million people saying, yes, I want to see a social plastic, this we were then able to take to the companies and say, look, there is this movement of people wanting this kind of change. We can help you be a part of it. And for us, it really became that step one of, took a long time to figuring out the recycling, took a long time to figure out what kind of tech do we need. But our starting point of, even just with David and myself, of, how could we get our voice out there that this is the vision of social plastic, world? Do you want to see it? And if so, how can you help?
Almost kind of like you're just leading with the openness of like, we don't have everything figured out here because this is just too big of a problem, too new of a problem anyway. But we're trying, right? And I think that there's probably a way to hook into that for the news cycle. They like to see the novel concept. They like to see people trying to do good, right? There's something about that is intriguing. But now 10 years fast forward, how has that been? Like there's probably a lot more education. There's been a lot of changes in this space. Where are you guys on your journey now, specifically with the media? Like, are you able to reach people still? Are you able to connect other than my show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. And it's when the world's changed and evolved quite a bit where, you know, there really is becoming this social license of doing business. And a lot of our early clients were in Europe, and a lot more companies are really starting to realize that, it's not even all just about marketing. A lot of our partners are looking at, with their employees and their staff, how do we do something authentic so we attract the right people? We attract, the next millennial, degree of C-level executives who are coming in. And I think there's been this change of the world of people just really looking for authenticity. And, social media has evolved so much that when you can have authentic storytelling of not commercials and campaigns, but, here's literally someone who just, received an education, received health insurance for the first time, you start to have these tools that are a little bit easier, that you almost don't need the modern day media television interview anymore to get attention.
Mm.
It's really, social media has evolved so much that authentic storytelling captured on the spot, almost spreads more than news stories, like when it's authentic. And we've really looked at just how between us and our partners could we really just validate that this is real, this is happening, and here's the emotion of it. And when you don't fake the emotion, the emotion's there. I think it's a lot easier, to be accepted through the noise these days.
Yeah, we talk a lot about, well, I started to actually realizing that a lot of the content that seems to do pretty well online nowadays is sort of like based on like lived experience discussion. So like if you can talk about at whatever level you are in your journey through life, an example of that lived experience, it's just going to come out more authentic, more real than talking about what we should do, right? Or what the world needs to do, or what our product can do, right? It's more like, can we use the past, actual case study, actual experience, and do the storytelling around that. It seems to resonate better with people because it obviously comes off authentic. And just admitting that you don't have all the answers. You're in what, 55 regions of the world. You're not everywhere. It's still amazing, right? Something like that. Um, Talking it from that point of view makes it feel like you're being real about what you're trying to do, right?
No, agreed. And same with, it's also, yeah, understanding when you work in imperfect ecosystems. It's all, even one of our big lessons, it was really about phasing in to get to where we need to go and have a phase one of setting up. So even we brought in a technology platform with our app. everyone uses it like a gig economy of a recycling business. They register members.
Is that the alchemy product?
Yeah, so our Alchemy and Plastic Bank's our app, and our back end is Alchemy, and it all kind of combines together. But we realize that we can't do manual reporting, can't have it take months for audits. How do we do everything in real time, record it as it happens, verify who someone is, pay someone special bonuses above the market rate, again in real time? And as we started to just look at, one of the problems, like case studies we looked at, how do you put millions of dollars into vulnerable, last mile areas and have it go to the right people? And this really became the how might we of, how could tech be the way it's real time, real trust, real distribution? But we're understanding we got to phase in the tech. Most people, it's the first phone they've ever used. They've never actually, don't have a reference of other apps, and again, knowing that, how do we work that even our branches could be the first phone in a community, record everything, and then phase in the benefits over time? And what we've had to learn as well is just, work within the reality of how an area is, but also don't be limited by the challenges of the past, problem solve within that reality. And you really can figure out how to just, reach everyone you need, especially with a phase one, phase two, phase three approach. Like in a how might we attitude, and everything for us is, just because you can't do it today doesn't mean you can't do it tomorrow. So how might we, scale everything, again, to my original comment, to be exponential? We kind of look at, you can pilot anything for 12 months, and after 12 months, it's got to be exponential or else it won't scale. But sometimes you need that pilot to figure out the scale.
Interesting. Okay, can you walk us through a little bit on what that process is like when you take us like from a hypothetical new location in a part of the world by a river that you see a lot of plastic waste? What are the characteristics that you go, that might be a good spot to potentially bring this model to? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of our areas are really, step one, is it a source of ocean-bound plastic? And Southeast Asia is one of the largest ocean-bound plastic areas in the world. Thus, a lot of organizations around there, like our Egypt operations off of the Nile. So really, one, looking at where's the place with the highest need, and the highest impact is a big part of it. And, we really just look what's working there, what's not. All of our locations are usually as an existing recycling something ecosystem. Often it's called waste picking and scavenging. And we look at it, instead of coming in and competing and disrupting, these hardworking entrepreneurs, how do we become a layer of, hope and benefit for them? So we learned early on that, we don't go and set up a shop that competes and shuts down. We look at what's existing and how can we bring in, ethical recycling. Everyone gets paid more. It's registered. It's traceable. There's rewards and benefits for not being part of child labor, for having code of conduct compliance. And in doing so, once we can connect that entire chain, everyone's incentivized for that behavior change. So really, once we find that processing partner who can take the materials, we now have an output that all materials that go to here, there's value. And the more we find that flow of from where was that input source, to value. And most of the world's recycling, when they say it's traceable, they'll tell you it came from this processor in this country. In our case in Indonesia, it often comes from a collection member to a small branch, to a bigger branch, to a bigger branch, to an aggregator. It's 6 chains deep. We record that entire chain because everyone's enrolled and incentivized. That then makes it authentically, here's the starting point. And these are some things that we had to learn over time of, the reality is there's often a long chain to get to the right place. How do we incentivize that whole chain to do it, the regenerative way?
Yeah, because there's always those issues with international development of like you see a place that's impoverished and like this place needs shoes, so then you put a shipping container, get a bunch of shoes donated, and ship it over there, and then you dump all those shoes, and then you kind of kill the local market play, like people's livelihoods that were trying to make shoes in that area, like that. There's that issue, right? Like you can overwhelm an existing however small economy that may or may not be working efficiently, but it's like if you have to be very careful, right, about how you then add better organized value exchange for this area so that everyone's benefiting, right? It doesn't do good to come in and, I guess I would assume, put out a bunch of the plastic pickers out of business if you just if your process is in that sort of doing that aspect of it. It's sort of like I guess, paying more? Like, how would that rub happen? Where's that danger like? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a big part of our ethos. And again, we've really tried to ever avoid being a project or a campaign. And there's a lot of well intentioned things with a start and end date. And for us, our expansion where we go is based on where can we sustain. And again, we're not a charity, we're a for-profit social enterprise. When we sell the offsets or plastic credits, when we sell the material, that funds the benefit. And we really just make sure that we're in areas that we can sustain ongoing. So really being mindful not to go to a community and, for this week, we have this special promotion and going away, because that really can be confusing, disruptive. So we're very mindful to really try to, only expand where we can sustain and avoid, sometimes it can seem great to just go as much everywhere you can because it's great to announce things, as compared to we try to, well, how do we just double down the value where we are, give more back to the people that were already there, and, expand within those existing ecosystems. So yeah, we really try to avoid anything that would be called a temporary project. Now, some things you do got to pilot, and there's learning in pilots, but we even try to avoid
Sure.
any pilot that's not really meant to be greenlit to be, a full-time self-sustained operation when it's done.
So you're looking at partners that have like processing, recycling plants or these locations on in country, on premise, or in these areas. But then I would assume you probably have like international development partners, grant giving groups that come in there. I've I've worked with some of them, and they've always tried to, it's a lot of paperwork to get a grant. It's a lot to fill out, I'm not going to name names. Okay, let's just say Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's a lot to do to get them to cut you a check. And it comes with certain strings attached, of course, on the reporting the impact of that thing. And in addition, they also they want it to be self-sustaining. They want like to put the capital in, create that system, and then it runs on its own versus having to come back to the well of foundation money, right? Um, do you work with those types of partners too? And how do you shape the conversations to be like, we're going long term here, long term change?
Yeah, I mean, best way to put it, like when it comes to our actual products, like we're probably 99%, client funded. Where all of our impact is because it went into a product, because it went into a bottle. Now we do have a grant team and have done some grants, but again, our ratio would probably be about 99% is based on the pure revenue driven sales model. And we have found some
Really?
great partners where people are looking to really apply what we do, to these specific areas. And we've always had to be careful. A lot of grants almost want you to do something you've never done before and would not have happened without the grant, as compared to we always are very authentic that, there's some things that we use the grants to pilot, like our education programs and pilot, say, new benefit programs, but really find that mix that, we are not grant dependent or highly grant funded, but sometimes the grants have been a great way that we kind of can R&D experiment because it's a win for the grant. They're trying to get something like this. And then that extra resources really helps us not to distract from everything we're doing, but authentically bring in these grant pilots. So
I
education's been the
see.
biggest thing that we've had some great grants help us build education projects that really are very separate than our business model. But for us, if we can have root cause education that, the families, the children, the whole community is educated on proper recycling, that's a win for us. And yeah, grants have really been on the education side as a large part of what we've used them.
I see. Because you have established then that some of these network, you have some community ties at this point for some of the older programs. I mean, projects you're in. I get it. What about wait, so how does it pay for itself? Like, how does this thing pay? I mean, is it Johnson and Johnson or whoever made Windex or whatever? Is that a partner?
Yeah, so yeah, we partner with like Etsy Johnson's a big partner, uh, Henkel who makes Dial and other large consumer brands, and it's kind of a combination. There's a lot of partners that are really looking at how can they get long term access to a recycled plastic. And many people's who partner with us, not just random recycled plastic. If I have to use a recycled plastic, how could it be regenerative, have a social impact, be traceable, and really secure the ability to have that long-term supply chain. So we have some partners with that. There's a lot more programs now where people are needing to offset a fat plastic footprint, use less or really offset more than they use and get to this model of either phasing down on plastic or having a better recycling chain. And we find this combination of really people that are just looking, almost by business requirement to put this authentic social impact into their products to do it the right way. And as I said too, even my biggest surprise when we first started, we had a lot more partners looking to, yeah, how do we create something that our staff would be proud of more so than a consumer driven campaign? And that really drives us that we've got to be the protectors of authenticity, that we don't do campaigns. We create an authentic regenerative impact, and if we want to do it the right way, we have a great way to work together.
Okay, so walk me through a hypothetical. So I make a product, I have to use some plastic to distribute that product, and I know it's ending up on some percentage of it is ending up into the ocean. And so I presume that I want to set a fund on the side or something to find partners like you who we can say, yeah, we collected some of this stuff off of the to offset the use of the plastics in the products that are making. I'm offsetting that by helping you. How much do you need, Shaun? Is it like $1 million? Like, do we need that every year to pay you? Like, how does this happen?
Yeah, and it kind of depends on the partner. Some people are directly using the plastic, sourcing it from our areas. Some people are really just calculating what they use, and sometimes it can be a plastic offset or really just an impact. We're also seeing a genuine push that, there's a lot of ESG programs that are looking to make environmental social impacts, to really hit these targets, social license to operate, that if you're going to operate, going to do this, you're going to do it authentically. And for us, a lot of it is just the fully traceable, authentic impact. And, really, now more than ever, in such a good way, it is getting so dangerous to greenwash, so dangerous to exaggerate and embellish. So this kind of comes back to our model that when we can prove who got paid at what time, like who got what social benefit, who funded it. All of this is built into our foundations of it's got to be audit ready all the time in real time to make it safe for the person funding that benefit to be able to share that benefit. And I think more than anything, we're able to be that conduit in between of that risk management that once you have it that people receive bonus health insurance, this, it starts to become safe to celebrate the impact we made in this community without it coming off campaigny. And I think for a lot of ways we get to be that authentic storytelling narrative of authentic good, because I do think the consumer wants to vote with their wallet, know that if I'm going to buy something, that I'd rather buy the something that did something good that I trust. And we really work with the consumer, the brand, the community of how can we just bring in that trust that it actually is safe to talk about doing good.
This is the right moment to probably plug the platform. I could, as just as an individual, go on your platform and go like, add $20 a month to just send to you guys for this program, like to participate in my level.
Yeah, like at plasticbank.com, we're just creating what we're calling our Changemaker program where people can be part of an impact of the month. They can calculate their footprint, offset it. And, beyond just the contributions, we're starting to build out what we call kind of Changemaker toolkits. How can you go to your school programs and make an impact? How can you at your office go make an impact and, really be a change maker? So what we're even evolving is beyond just, for 10 years or the last 9 at least, we've been really focused on how do we drive this collection within the community of our collection members? And really looking beyond that, how do we stop ocean plastic? We need every household recycling. If every household in the world bought responsibly, the things they bought, knew exactly if I'm going to buy it, here's where it goes back. How might we play this part that everyone knows what's the most impactful way for me to be a responsible consumer? And this is kind of where we're looking at how do we just become this change maker enablement platform that everyone can play a part. So yeah, at plasticbank.com, we keep building these foundations for how, whether you're part of a home, a business, a school, there really is a way to play a part.
To hook into this, how I want to ask this question just because it's a good one in general, but if you had to start over today, like something happened to you, That whole business doesn't exist. Your memory got wiped, but you want to start this again today. Where would you push in your chips? What would you do differently today that that you perhaps weren't aware of or weren't even thinking about 10 years ago?
Yeah, there's a couple things. So we're really big into AI and tech. When we started, it was no tech to low tech to now obsessed with tech. To be able to start with some of the advantages of, what you can do with AI marketing, what you can do with, a lot of the tools of even, software gets easier to develop year after year. So, we had a big kind of 4 years of learning and then diving into the platform. Again, if I could start today and just start with the platform, like it would have been much easier to, go and grow that. If I could have my own brain on the learnings of what worked or didn't in the platform, that would be great. But it's also a very different world. We had to spend the first 4 years convincing people that consumers would care about any purpose and that anyone would care about ocean plastic. So, if anything, we wouldn't have had to educate and convince compared to serve the need, which would be very different.
Very different atmosphere. And I presume this is why, what, 5, 6 years ago, you put some chips into the blockchain technology, right?
Mhm.
Because I saw some presentations around that. How has like adopting that blockchain technology internally to this the software stack you guys have, how has that turned out?
Yeah, it's been fundamental. Like, again, the key part, one of our first partners said, I need you to be attack proof. Like, again, if we're going to make a claim, you have to be attack proof. And once we could, okay, every register is immutable, it's in the blockchain ledger, we have proof of this person got paid, and really just, and not even just the blockchain part, but really the tech itself of how do we get zero marginal cost on reporting? How do we get zero marginal cost really on the auditing? This is what's enabled that kind of scale to figure out what's the right way to incentivize. Everything's recorded. We continue to look at digital distribution. We give digital food vouchers to people as well. So in addition to receiving above market, rate for recycling, our collection members can get food vouchers that are digital, spent at the local markets. And we keep looking at how do we remove the physical logistics to deliver genuine benefits. And one of the comments I think you'd made earlier of, part of the learning is there's some things that sound like, great, I could give somebody this, give somebody that. They might not need it.
Hmm.
But really, if we can give someone that guaranteed amount that they need, give someone the access to food and safety for their family, we can really learn what do they need. And again, how do we make it scale with trust and authenticity? And for us, the tech has really been a big part that we don't need to be there physically 100% of the time for it to scale with trust and authenticity.
Awesome. We just blew through our time, Shaun. I really appreciate you, man, giving us a sense of this. This sounds like fascinating and all-consuming, like business scene you're in, and I really do appreciate there are people like you out there that are just making a go of it. And I think after 10 years, you're an expert now, right? In this space, you figured out a few things. So what should we leave off on? Like, what do you need now? If somebody comes across this show and listens to this, like, what are you looking for now that would be helpful to hear from someone?
Yeah, obviously anyone can reach out at plasticbank.com, see how to play a part. But, even more than that, we want to be a genuine change maker enablement platform. And, if anyone can look that, how might my business be a source of good? How could I give back more than the world? I really do think we're seeing this paradigm that doing good in business one day could just be a requirement to do business. So if anything, I hope to be an example that a social business model is a genuine business model that comes with advantages of people just trying to help people trying to play a part. So I really encourage anyone, just how might you bring social impact into what you do for a living?
Awesome. Thank you, Shaun. And thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate it. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Visit throughthenoise.us for more episodes and subscribe to our newsletter. This show is produced by Through the Noise Consulting, uniting external communications and internal IT functions to ensure data and privacy are protected while creating innovative communications platforms. Want to start your own podcast? We can help. Visit getthroughthenoise.com to learn more.